Imagine this. You're 10,000 feet in the air. It's pitch black outside, wind howling, rain pelting the metal skin of the aircraft like bullets. And a man in a trench coat, sunglasses still on in the dim cabin, calmly opens a briefcase that he says holds a bomb. He just pocketed $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes, and now he's about to jump out the back of a commercial jetliner. No one ever sees him again. No body, no confirmed sighting, no trace of where he landed. Just gone. This isn't fiction. This is the true story of the man who pulled off America's only unsolved case of air piracy, a ghost known to history as D.B. Cooper. And nearly 53 years later, we're still asking, who was he? And did he really get away with it? It was the day before Thanksgiving, 1971. Airports were chaos. Holiday travelers crowding the terminals, people flying with 0 security checks. No bag scans, no metal detectors. You could walk right up to the gate with a briefcase full of anything. And that's exactly what one man did. He bought a one-way ticket from Portland to Seattle, 30 minutes of airtime, tops. Gave his name as Dan Cooper, paid in cash, no ID required. He looked like anyone's accountant. Mid-40s, dark suit, neatly combed hair, clip-on tie, the kind of guy you wouldn't look at twice. But this guy was no ordinary passenger. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to a flight attendant, Florence Schaffner. At first, she didn't even read it. Figured it was just a phone number or some sleazy come-on. But then he leaned in close and said 6 words that changed aviation history. "Miss, you'd better read that note. I have a bomb." He cracked open his briefcase, just enough to show her a tangle of wires and red sticks. Whether it was real or fake, nobody ever found out. What matters is, everyone believed him. Cooper had it all thought out. He told the crew he wanted $200,000 in unmarked bills, 4 parachutes, 2 main, 2 reserves, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle. His deadline? 5 p.m. What's wild is, he stayed calm the whole time, ordered a bourbon and soda, paid for his drink, even tried to tip the flight attendant. He wasn't threatening, wasn't angry, just chillingly polite. Like this was just business. While the plane circled over Puget Sound, the FBI scrambled to pull together his demands. The money came from several Seattle banks, $10,000 $20 bills. They photographed every single one to record the serial numbers. The parachutes? That was trickier. They came from a local skydiving school. Ironically, one of them was a training chute, sewn shut and unusable, a detail that could have turned fatal. By 5:39 p.m., the plane landed in Seattle. The goods were delivered, the passengers were released, and Cooper let the plane refuel for the second leg of his plan. This is where things get even stranger. Cooper gave precise instructions. Fly south toward Mexico at low altitude, under 10,000 feet. Keep the cabin unpressurized. Flaps at 15 degrees, landing gear down. This wasn't random, it was the ideal setup for a jump. And there's one more key thing. The Boeing 727 had a unique rear staircase, known as an aft air stair. It could be lowered mid-flight. Cooper knew that. In fact, he'd picked this plane because of it. At 8:13 p.m., somewhere over the dense, stormy forests of southwest Washington, the crew felt a sudden shift in the aircraft. A pressure change, a bump in the tail. Cooper had jumped. With $200,000 strapped to him and a parachute on his back, he vanished into the night. That's it. No mayday call, no radar blip, just an empty cabin and a missing man. The only things he left? 2 parachutes, a black clip-on tie, 8 cigarette butts in the armrest ashtray, and 66 fingerprints no one could match. And then, nothing. No body, no parachute, no bag of money. For years, Cooper was just gone. The FBI kicked off what would become one of the most exhaustive manhunts in American history. The operation was codenamed Norjack, short for Northwest Hijacking. They brought in helicopters, fixed-wing planes, even an SR-71 Blackbird spy plane to retrace the flight path. Hundreds of boots were on the ground. Army troops combed the dense forests near Ariel, Washington. Dogs, divers, you name it. But Cooper had picked one of the worst possible nights to jump. High winds, rain, freezing temps, and near zero visibility. Not exactly the conditions for a clean landing. Still, nothing turned up. No gear, no chute, no sign he'd made it, or hadn't. Right from the start, opinions split in two. One camp said, no way he survived. They pointed to the weather, the rough terrain, the non-steerable parachute, and the fact he was jumping in loafers and a trench coat. Not exactly tactical gear. Plus, there was that sewn-shut dummy reserve chute. Probably a death sentence if he tried to use it. And yet, the other camp wasn't so sure, because nothing was found. And you know what they say, no body, no closure. For years, the trail was ice cold. Then, in February 1980, almost 9 years after the hijacking, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging in the sand along the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington. He was just trying to build a campfire. What he found instead, bundles of old, decaying $20 bills, $5,800 in total. And when the FBI checked the serial numbers, they were a match. It was Cooper's ransom money. The discovery only deepened the mystery. The cash was found 20 miles from the suspected drop zone, partially buried in sand. And the rubber bands were still intact after nearly a decade, which made no sense. Some thought the money had been dropped into a river, carried downstream. Others said maybe it had been buried on purpose, by Cooper or someone else. Then in 2020, scientists analyzed algae trapped on the bills. Turns out the money had only been in the water during spring or summer. So how did it get buried there 9 years later? Yeah, exactly. The FBI held on to everything they could. That clip-on tie Cooper left behind? Years later, a group of citizen investigators, not FBI, ran an electron microscope over it. They found something weird. Microscopic particles of pure titanium. Not titanium alloy. Pure titanium, which in 1971 was rare and used in only very specific industries. Also found? Rare earth elements like cerium and strontium sulfide, stuff you'd find in high-tech manufacturing, chemical plants, or early electronics production. So now the theory was this. D.B. Cooper wasn't just some guy with a parachute. He might have been an engineer, a lab technician, maybe even a Boeing employee. Over the decades, the FBI checked out over 1,000 people. Some stood out. One of the biggest names? Richard McCoy Jr. He hijacked a plane just 5 months later in almost the exact same way, and even used a parachute to escape. Thing is, McCoy was younger, had different physical features, and the FBI ruled him out. But not everyone agrees. In 2023, McCoy's own family handed over a parachute and logbook to the FBI, claiming it might be linked to Cooper. As of now, it's being reviewed. Another strong candidate? Kenneth Christiansen. He worked for Northwest Orient, the same airline Cooper hijacked. Former paratrooper, lived near Seattle, bought a house with cash in '72, even left a strange deathbed message to his brother. There's something you should know. But again, nothing conclusive. There was also Robert Rakstraw, a Vietnam vet and explosives expert who once faked his own death, teased the media with cryptic messages. Then there's Sheridan Peterson, a former Boeing employee and skydiving fanatic, and Dwayne Weber, whose wife claimed he confessed on his deathbed. The list goes on, none confirmed, all circumstantial. Let's go back to the jump. Was it suicide by style, or the ultimate vanishing act? Sure, he jumped into awful weather. Sure, he wore terrible gear. But some experts say it wasn't impossible. He might have been more prepared than we thought. Worn thermal layers, had a map, maybe even had help waiting on the ground. And he picked that plane on purpose. knew the exact specs, knew how to keep the stairs down mid-flight. That's not random. That's planning. In 2016, 45 years after the hijacking, the FBI finally closed the active investigation. They said they had nothing more to go on. Too many dead ends. Too many dead suspects. But they also made it clear, if new evidence shows up, a parachute, a bag of money, anything physical, they'll come back. And weirdly enough, new evidence is still turning up. Imagine this. Somewhere out there, a man once known as Dan Cooper is living under a different name. Maybe he cashed in that money quietly. Maybe he never touched it. Maybe he lived simply, paid in cash, never bragged, never slipped up. And maybe every year on November 24th, he poured himself a bourbon and soda and toasted to the night he pulled off the perfect vanishing act. Whether he lived or died, Cooper became a legend. He inspired books, movies, songs, even comic books. There's been everything from serious documentaries to wild fiction like Without a Paddle and Loki, where Cooper is literally portrayed as the god of mischief. He's not just a criminal, he's folklore now. There's even a yearly convention, CooperCon, where enthusiasts trade theories, artifacts, and rumors. Here's the thing. Most unsolved crimes fade. This one doesn't. Why? Because it plays into something primal, the desire to escape, to beat the system, to vanish without a trace. D.B. Cooper is the guy who maybe, just maybe, got away with it. Was he a rogue CIA agent? A jilted airline employee? A disgruntled veteran? Or just a guy who gambled everything for one wild shot and landed on the right side of legend? We might never know. But until someone finds that parachute, or a bag of bills, or a forgotten grave in the Washington woods, the mystery of D.B. Cooper will always be out there, drifting like a ghost through the storm. If you enjoyed unraveling this mystery with me, you know what to do. Drop a comment with your favorite theory. Did he survive, or is he buried somewhere near Tina Bar? D.B. Cooper may have jumped into a storm that night, but what he really jumped into was history. And until the final clue surfaces, we'll all keep watching the skies, just in case.